We've had it so lucky compared to some of our school leaders throughout this pandemic because it's hard enough to try to make those adjustments for a small staff. But when you're trying to make these adjustments for an entire school, it becomes a little bit more difficult. So with that, we want to bring in Kerri Vizena. She is the head of the school over at the Japhet School and Clawson, but they're an independent school, and I love their story as well. But we've talked to so many school leaders, but we haven't had your perspective throughout this pandemic. So Kerri, thank you again for your time, for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Ronnie. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
But for those of us, I will say, and I apologize, I have been in the Metro Detroit area for so many years, and as a reporter for 10 plus years, I had never heard of your school because we think of independent schools as either private schools or Catholic schools, and you're neither, or charter. Charter's been like really a big news topic, but you're neither.
We are. You are absolutely correct. An independent school has a mission statement, and that separates us from a parochial. We're not a religious school, and we're not a public school. So we do have a tuition and a mission and a vision. We are a member of AIMS, which is the Association of Independent Michigan Schools. Other schools you may know might be Cranbrook or University Liggett or Roper. So we are part of that organization. I like to think of Japhet as, and we've been kind of dubbed this, a small but mighty school. We have approximately, it fluctuates, 70 to 50 students, somewhere in there, and we are a preschool through 8th grade school. So with that brings a smaller, more intimate setting. I think it's allowed us during this pandemic to be able to face challenges more quickly and through the eyes of, with teamwork, which is very, very important to us. So.
And Kerri, before we kind of jump into the COVID side of this conversation, if I could just kind of touch on, because going on your website, the thing that I loved reading about was that you're a school of character. You're not just about the education of learning and reading today and memorizing facts to pass the test. You're really trying to nurture these kids to be great members of our community and our society. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I'd be happy to. And that really, you use that term nurture, and that's part of our mission statement, which is to nurture and prepare each child for life by integrating character education with a strong academic program. So we seek to educate the whole child, which means character, emotional, social, intellectual, and the founders of our school, which was about 50 years ago we're coming upon, was a group of parents that were, their children were in the local public schools, and they weren't satisfied with they found a lack of character education, and they wanted a more substantial whole aspect to the learning environment. So they banded together and they founded Japhet School. And it is who we are, character plus strong academics.
Can you kind of break down quickly the elements that you believe build the character?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, it's a team effort with our parents. So when parents decide to have their children enroll at Japhet, it flows right through to the family. And so it's a cooperative aspect of learning. And we take a character quality. We have 18 character qualities. There's in 2 cycles, so 9 a year. And we focus on 1 a month, 9 for a year, 9 months of the school year. And teachers and the whole staff integrate that character quality into learning, into modeling, into their lesson plans. And it actually just becomes so second nature that it's just woven right through. You might take math and say, well, how can you express character in a math class? But take reliability, that would be one, or initiative, or punctuality. These are all aspects and character qualities that are important to the success of a student.
Kerri Vizena with us here on the MegaCast. She is the head of the school over at the Japhet School in Clawson. And I will say, listening to this and reading more about it as you were going to be a guest on the show, I'm like, this seems like it needs to really be the basic of so many other educational programs. I can't believe we're not hearing more about this.
Well, of course, I agree with you, Ronnie. You know, just building on that character aspect, which I do think separates us from other educational institutions, character provides leadership, opportunities for leadership, for public speakers. And we find that our students, when they leave Japhet School, go on to schools and then other schools following 8th grade that promote that aspect of leadership and go on to being in service to others. So it really is reaching out. We find our students reaching farther than themselves, very unselfishly, to serve communities as well.
I love that about your school and the practices that you're trying to implement within our students. If I can kind of shift the focus back to COVID-19. We've heard so much from the superintendents here locally with our public schools, but also we've talked to so many people from some of the Catholic schools. What has it been like for you as an independent school?
Well, I can tell you over a year and a half ago, when March came around and suddenly, you know, the governor declared that all schools were closing, and the immediacy of that within 2 days, we were able to quickly pivot and adjust our education for our students to virtual. Our students each went home with a Chromebook, and that was all students. And teachers very quickly and in a team-like fashion coordinated their lesson plans. And it wasn't easy. I'm not saying that it was easy, but it was in the spirit of, I like to call it, we call it the silver lining, approaching this pandemic or problem, this challenge, with a sense of hope and just digging deep for the resources that could help elevate that education and even take it further than we had already, been experiencing through technology.
With that, Kerri, too, how many students are enrolled there at your school?
Right now, we're about 50, just a little over 50. So.
And do you think because of the size of your enrollment in your population with the students, it made it a bit easier? I mean, can you imagine doing this within 2 days?
Right.
That's the whole thing. Like, I don't think we've really focused on that.
Right.
Could you imagine within 2 days you're being told you have to educate differently?
Right. And it did happen. And I do say that the intimacy of an education at Japhet School does have its benefits. And this certainly was one of those silver linings for us. Did we ever see this coming? No. But I do think that it proved to us the validity of an education at Japhet, and that although our numbers are smaller, we are absolutely relevant to today's world and producing students that leave a mark in society once they leave us.
Kerri Vizena with us here on the MegaCast. She's the head of the school over the Japhet School in Clawson. And if I can ask you as well, because while you're an independent school, you are also tuition based, and
Yes.
one thing we have seen throughout this pandemic, really, it's highlighted the the issue of disparity within our community. So do you feel like because you are tuition based, maybe your families and your students didn't feel that impact as much as maybe a student in public education? Because I would assume most of your students, they have access to the internet.
They do, and you're absolutely right. So, and we do have students from all over, north of Clawson, up, north. We have some Ferndale, Berkeley, Troy, Detroit, Southfield. So we're all over the area with where our students come from. But yes, having a tuition base, I think it is different than a public school situation. But we also do have, I think, we work with every family that comes in to be able to reach them so they're able to, with tuition assistance if needed. So I strongly feel that's important, that we're able to reach as many students as we can and families.
But with that as well, one of the interesting things that's been happening with your organization is even though you're in the middle of a pandemic, it has not stopped your growth and your focus when it comes to STEM. Tell us more about that.
Correct. So we're so excited. We are launching a STEM lab. We have not had a STEM lab at Japhet School in the past, and we did receive a sizable grant that allows us to purchase a brand new STEM lab for our 5th through 8th grade students. And it will be located in their middle school room. But all students will be able to use it and schedule that opportunity. So it will be this summer purchasing wonderful equipment and supplies and furniture to furnish that wonderful lab, and it will just broaden all aspects and I think opportunities in the area of STEM. So for our students.
I love that because I think it's so important going forward that we focus the attention to the kids into that arena, because the great thing about them is they think creatively and they don't have the barriers that we do as adults, so they can really expand that horizon. Hey, are your students back in person, and are they wearing masks? Because if you're talking 8th grade and under, they're not, most of them aren't eligible for the vaccine yet, right?
Right. So way back when back in March, and when we did have to go virtual quickly, and then when summer came and it was, okay, what are we going to do in September? So quickly, this was another way that we pivoted. We wrapped the parents into this decision-making process of would they support coming back into a building? And if so, what safety protocols, health and safety protocols, would they like to see in place? So a survey was taken, and through that and working with faculty and staff and other administration, we put together a very thorough health and safety protocol package, which the parents totally bought into. I can say that some parents chose to pull out of school, but just a few. But then we gained others that came from public schools where they weren't able to be in the building, or they sought other areas, ways to educate their children, of which they sought out Japhet. So yes, our students, we have been in the building since September. Our students, part of our protocol is they are all wearing masks from preschool through 8th grade, as well as our faculty and staff. Even outdoors when they're at recess, this seemed to be the comfortability for our parents and our staff, and we're maintaining this through the end of school, which is June 11th. Even though the outside may be doing something different and there certain regulations be lifted, we're going to go to the finish line with this, the protocols that we have in place.
Well, let's hope that when you return in the fall, we'll be back to somewhat of a normal.
I sure hope so.
Right? It's been quite the year. Kerri Vizena with us here on the MegaCast. She's the head of the school over there at Japhet School, located in Clawson. We so appreciate your time, but also your perspective as well on what this has meant for independent schools throughout the pandemic. And we wish you the best of luck. And we look forward to checking back in with you maybe in the fall time.
I would love that, Ronnie. And thank you again for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.